There's a question that I keep coming back to every time I think about the Titans or the Kings, Eris, the story, the darkness, the whisper, all of it, the prophets. And that question is just from what you know, just from all the research I've been doing, everything I've been trying to find the answer to this. And it seems no matter how hard I try, I can't find it. It's a question that's been plaguing me for some years now. It's a simple question that's been raised before, but one that can't altogether be proven. And it is basically, is God dead? Because the last beings that had communicated with the Creator are long gone, because they were themselves destroyed, to which the destroyers of them were destroyed, and now we're seeing the next generation to be destroyed. So where's the Creator in all this? I mean, it's been said a bunch, many times, that the Forgotten King is the creator of man. And in many ways, some could say the Titans are the creators of the Anakame as they sit now. I mean, they just gave them a place and gave them a purpose, but in some ways, what is creation, if not, something of that nature? But where is the creator of it all? The circle. All the realms. Everything that ever was and ever was going to be and ever will be. All of it. Just say a word and that. The creator of that. Where is he? What happened? I was looking through and trying to find anything I could to give me that answer. And I can't find one thing. Not one mention of the Creator. Then I found a section in the story of the Titans, the creators, and how they gave life to the Inakume. And, I'll read it out and this is what led me to my search. Together they looked to the aid of the mighty Theis. Theis was gathering the Titans, and they gathered among the astral. He saw what was to become of the world, Yuandra, and saw that it was particularly good. He knew that in order to bring true life to these wandering souls that now flew through the shaped world, they would need a vehicle in order to guide themselves and see the reality of death. This new vehicle would help the soul contemplate it and even fear it, thus giving them the power to walk through it. It was Theis who would travel to the center, the realm of creation, to beg for the Creator's guidance. For in his mind, Theis, he often wondered if this was the right choice and the right course of action. Guiding lost souls was his mission, a self-anointed one at that, but he believed in his heart that this was the Creator who asked this of him. Though when he arrived at the creation realm, he could only find the heavenly place swirling with the transcended souls that came from all other realms. The path was working, but there was no sign of those from the lowest realm, life. It was perplexing to him that life stood outside the circle, for he believed this was the beginning, but when he saw the splendor of the realm of creation held no soul that came from life, it stirred in him that perhaps he had not given enough. The realms were in the circle. It was the Titans who found life. They set up the afterlife and the astral realm. These were not works that were already in place. These contemplated this. He thought that perhaps he had done wrong, and now he stood in the realm of creation, a realm that all souls gathered to and came from. But also, all that was creation was spinning out from this place into the other realms. It was working in tandem, like a machine, like the blood flowing to the heart to come back out. Everything within the circle, except for the realm of life that lied outside of the symbionts. Quote, how could the highest beings in all of the circle be so unaware of what the Creator's plan was? These thought as he searched and searched for the Creator and found nothing. He called out and was not received. The lack of his light, the light of the Creator, worried Theus, to which he took as a sign that perhaps the Titans had not done enough. He could not let the others know. Before he left the realm of creation, he asked all the Titans to gather at his arrival, and they would begin with bringing bodies to the Anaku at the behest of the Creator. How could he let them know the Creator would not receive him? The highest of all the Titans. What would they think of him? He could not understand what he should do, and with small doubt acted for the Creator at the behest of his own fear. This question of not understanding what happened to the Creator led me to a realization in those few paragraphs. The part where it said, when he was basically saying, like, how could the Creator not listen to me, and how could they know this, my brethren? He didn't understand what he should do, so he acted in the stead of the Creator and said, yeah, this is what he wanted me to do. This is what it was. Because that small doubt he carried back at the behest of his own fear, right? How could he let them know the Creator wouldn't receive him, the highest of all Titans? What would they think? Oh, well, I'll just kind of act for the Creator. Because he brought back something. That something is quite possibly, could have been blamed on the Titans. Everything that follows could have been the Titans' fault. Theus' fault, in fact, the one who brought this doubt. He didn't realize in that small moment, some say, that it was because of him that all the events that followed were to happen. And the downfall of the entire world is because of this one Titan. That one thing that has caused so much turmoil in the history of the world, and countless deaths, and countless wars, countless destruction. It's one small feeling. The feeling is fear. When he brought that with him, when he released that onto the world like a virus, cough, the particles in the air, it soon spread throughout the lands, just like all the other emotions had done too. Now, it's hard to understand what all that means until you understand just a little bit about what the spirits are. Now, the spirits are called that for some, but others would know them as emotions. And all these emotions are tools used by the Creator, right? To understand your own world, you need to have a vast array of emotions to interpret what you're seeing, what you're perceiving, what you're feeling, what you sense. These emotions guide you. Well, they all branch from two main places. That's love, and then fear. So these emotions are, in this world, living things, you could say. That imagine them as viruses or ticks or angels, all that in one. They just go from person to person. They live off of this and they live through. That is their way into the physical realm. It was a part of to give this symbiont circle, this idea that the Titans had to bring unity of metaphysical and physical. Now that plays into what was known as the unmanifestation and the manifestation of emotion, to which the manifestation of emotion leads you to this higher consciousness, to which then you can pass through that, slip the bonds of astral into the circle, and finally into the realm of creation. It's like a hard pass. We can cut through the bullshit. So, with that in mind, and knowing that fear is going to become this is kind of like, in this story, fear is called the whisper. It has many different defining qualities, and the reason why fear is the main bad guy is because it's built around the idea of what fear can give you in those moments when it comes. Fear makes you feel stronger. Fear makes it feel like it's trying to save you. It's that echo of a promise. I can protect you. Or you can feel better if you act out. You can feel safe if you break yourself from that person that you think is toxic. It's fear-driven. Everything is fear-driven. If you're trying to be confident, that's hidden behind fear. When you think like, I'm a confident person and I can do this and I can do that, like, that's all fear-driven. Fear is the motor to the human experience. Now that it is also the deterrent of the human experience at the same time. Because much like in real life, this book is built around duality. Obviously, love and fear. You could say good and bad, right and wrong. But we're built around that idea. And when we talk about Theis, bringing back this emotion from what is considered God's toolbox, all these other emotions that he eventually released at a later point into this world to bring the full circle, to hopefully correct the issues that are at hand. He didn't realize just how far it would go. But there's some that would say that you have to have the bad to know the good, right? You have to have the balance. Again, duality. How do you know what's bad until you know what's good? How do you know what's good until you know what's bad? Corruption, greed, anger are things you learn after you know what righteousness, indignations, fucking all this other positive shit. How are you going to know until you understand the other? You have to have a bad time. You have to learn the lessons of life because no one's going to fucking tell you, right? Well, that's where the whisper comes in, and that's where everything begins. But at the same time, the whisper isn't exactly this evil, dark entity that enters your mind and taints your thoughts and makes you commit crime and do evil. It's just a thing. It's like saying, is the virus evil that got you sick? Is the mosquito evil for sucking the little bit of blood out of your body? Does that make them evil? Is that truly wrong? Or is that the life they have to live? And that's what you see with the whisper. He's pervasive. You think you crush him? The Titans thought they destroyed the whisper, sent him to the realm of creation. He came back. The Forgotten King thought he destroyed the Whisper, and it came back. Mankind thought the Whisper had vanished, and the threat was no longer, as long as they prayed. But it came back. It will always come back. It will always find a new point to poke itself through. You'll never fully cover the board. It will always find that weakness. This episode, I want to explore the Whisper, or what is known as the Promise to the Titans. What mankind once called Dove, or what Martis calls the Slop King. I found another little article that kind of talks about how the Whisper is perceived, how to visualize what I'm talking about here, because it gets a bit much at times. So I'll just read this out and hopefully it'll help understand. The Whisper was always seen as what it was to another. It first attaches itself on Dove when he escaped from the other realm. Then the Whisper attached the Forgotten King. Therefore it appears as he. What is known about the Whisper is it is not what one sees before him. It is not the eyes that look on you. It lies behind whatever is attached to. So again, when we hear about Dove in the story of Tan, yes, that is indeed Dove. But what drives him is the Whisper. For the Whisper is fear. Its first name was the Promise. Now this could have been because the Titans found fear for the Anaku, and it was their sacred promise to them in order for the Anaku's growth in question of what was wicked because of Dove. Or it could have gotten its name because it grows on one. This person is approached by it, and then they are seduced by it, until they fall for whatever game it plays in order to gain the participants' trust. Then it makes a promise to aid this person whatever task is close to their heart. This tick, this virus, this sickness, this plague has brought down Titans, Quilcians, Alkans, the Forgotten King, Quirtus, Quinlan, Martis, countless others. It is the invisible virus that can spread among the populace that is totally unaware. As for its purpose, it is clear that the creature, if one could call it that, is only growing as it should. It is living its life cycle naturally. When the Titans found it, they pulled from the realm of creation, as they were warned previously not by the Creator. It was a tool created by him, and since the Creator disappeared, they felt they had to act for him, or Theis, more other. Now, was the discovery before or after the trapping Dove? That for a long time wasn't answered. But one theory was that perhaps after. Later, the Yanaku learned of this, and this is why you see them inhabit the forest, to keep the darkness in check. Not only to save Yondra from death, but to safeguard the Whisper's spread. This would lead to the Whisper needing a new host to spread, and this is where the Forgotten King's fall happens, as he is looked to aid the world after the Titan's destruction. It goes on, but at that point in history, it was talked about in the last one, where when the spirits were released by the Aeon into the realm, and they formed a symbiotic relationship with the Anaku. And then there was the war against the Forgotten King, and his destruction of those people, and his banishment. Sometimes a Whisper can do things that be counterproductive to itself. That's what fear does sometimes. Sometimes you just fall back on yourself. And I think that was the point when the spirits in exile, the Forgotten King in hiding, that snake grew again and realized as man grew from the forest, that was his new prey. He just wanted to spread to mankind. There's nothing more sinister behind it than that. He's just like, I gotta go here too. This has just gotta happen. I gotta spread on them. So that began the whole story of the snake in the portal, the Forgotten King's fall, and mankind's rising from the forest. The story of Tan and Dove. Now, Dove was manipulated by the Whisper himself. He wanted to destroy everything on the planet, because he was jealous. He grew angry at the little beings that walked on his beautiful world. Some would say, was it Dove that first discovered the Whisper? Was the Whisper buried beneath his thoughts? Buried in his subconscious in this other realm? Or was it Thies who brought it back with him when he was in fear of what his brethren would think of him? I mean, we could argue and we could say which happened first, that or that, but it's hard to say. And it's honestly always been left open-ended at that point. I think the only thing that really matters is fears in this world. And we get to the modern era, where there's quotes by people saying, quote, "Some men who play with fear are the ones who play with the hearts of mankind." It's clear that this connection to a creator that disappeared and a being called the Whisper sudden appearance, it's led some to believe that perhaps the Whisper, or fear, is the creator. But then there are others who believe that maybe it destroyed the creator. Where has the creator gone? He's not in his home. He does not speak anymore, and he hasn't spoken since. Now, it's hard to think that the Whisper is the creator for me, but it's not so hard for me to think of it devouring the creator. I don't know why, but to me that seems all the more likely. It vanquished the creator. But that's hard to say at this point. I think, if I were to go into the story of the beings of the world and say that the Anaku, how they were created, the story of the Titans, I could tell that story. And I could go and talk about the forest and the life and Mother Gaia and the story of the Forgotten King, Snake in the Portal, all that shit. I could do that. But what I really wanted to focus on was the Whisper in this episode, because it's the big bad guy. And it's been avoided for far too long. And honestly, I'm kind of out of my element. I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but if we just riff this out, and I'll just do some research, if I can find papers that mention it, then perhaps that would work out for us. We can just kind of go that route. What I do know, though, is how fear blighted the astral, how it is now in the dreams. I do understand that fear is in the realm of man and Anaku and the other races of the world. It's infected on every level. And for so long, man thought they had it in check. But when the wars were growing in South Voss, In the early 1600s, when you have the conflicts of Tantorum and Assyria, even Adrana at some point. Then you have the trade war kicking off in the 30s, I think. 32 or something. You're starting to see more and more conflicts and anger and hatred growing. And there's even some that say that those foaming, fucking in the mouth folk from Tantorum craving and lusting after war. Adrana's trying to keep themselves away from people like that. It was believed that the barrier, the faith, everything that was taught about the Forgotten King and the lives of man and the toil, that they would be saved from this whisper if they would just follow, and they would be good people and do as they're told and listen to their elders, follow the prophets, that they could be saved from this whisper. But in fact, this whisper was already in the hearts of man from the beginning, growing. And it was those in the prophets, those in the Abeko, who were already tainted by the whisper. I mean, you see it for what they do to their king and how they use their king, but I mean, that goes to another route. It's just that everything that man has ever done and he wants to do, everything he ever wants, is fear-driven. And that fear is crippling. Sometimes you can use it. Sometimes it gives you that promise and says, I'll help you. I'll make everything better for you. But for the most part, it drives you into madness, despair. Makes you feel like you can accomplish things, but it also cripples you in that same breath. And that is a constant problem that's never gone away. It's just... I wish I could say that the whisper is this evil thing, because it would make it easy, but in reality it's just this simple creature, essentially. This spirit that is only doing what it's supposed to do. And because it's doing that, it's so evasive, so dangerous that it could bring the world to its knees. It's pretty crazy to think about. That's the big bad guy in the story. That's the evil Darth Vader, the fucking Emperor. Was that Voldemort or whatever in Harry Potter? In this book, it's just a feeling. But the idea behind it is, this story is dealing with the idea of what it's like to, grow into adulthood, right? And that's the major deterrent of life. And this book is a philosophy of depression and anxiety. So of course the big bad guy is going to be something simple as fear. Because that's what takes you. That's what holds you down. But it also is what drives you. It makes you feel safe. It makes you feel like, my anxiety actually saves my life every day. Because it doesn't know that you're really not in that much danger. It's trying to protect you, but it doesn't know that those threats aren't going to kill you. But it'll treat it as such. And you have those traumas. From relationships, from childhood, or some sort of mental abuse, or just anything. Body doesn't know that. It's like, fuck, this is just dangerous. We need to protect ourselves. And fear gives you that promise. Hey, I can protect you. Doesn't it feel good when you create these scenarios in your head of what you're going to say to that person that you didn't get to say? Doesn't it feel good when I tell you that if you just push all these people away, they'll be happier? It lies to you all the time, but it makes you feel good. And that is the driving force to all that follows. from Dove all the way down to the prophets, from God to man, essentially. It's what follows Eris. It's what stays in his mind. It's what drives his thoughts. It's everything. I kind of was going to go into a whole layout of, like, and then we'll talk about the Titans, and then we'll talk about the circle and all that shit. Like, I think you got it by this point, if you listen this far. So that's fine. Those few people that give a fuck, whenever that is, that this is a book and it's happening and I'm working on it. I think you get it at this point. I guess in my mind, I've always avoided the whisper. Because it's almost like you could feel him on your shoulder every time you write. Like he's become this fucked up muse in what made this book a reality. This is just, it's been the driving force. Because this book is a representation of my life. It's the idea that like everything in this book is just like a metaphor for what I've gone through, what I've lived through, how I feel, and I'm the forgotten king. I've said it before, like, I feel like I'm stuck, and I'm making this for someone to save me, just like the forgotten king did. Just like what he was trying to do. Have people save him, his creation. That's what I'm doing too, and so for me as well, it's the whisper that drives me. It's my fucking enemy, but it's also my ally. I've always tried to wrap my head around just staying in the duality of life and understanding that I do need to have some bad so I can understand the good, and vice versa. I've always tried to maintain that. I always believed that there was a higher power, a creator. I've always believed that. I feel its hand in my life. But I also feel that looming threat. It's that thing I think we like to confuse in the Bible with the devil. I think it's just a representation. Fear gets this bad rap. But that's also why they make it seem that the devil's enticing, because that's what fear is too. Red, stop. Red means evil. Red means, I guess rebellious too. It's got a weird, when you look at like what colors mean, that shit can get weird. But when they talk about the devil, red is the color, right? Fire. He wears a red suit or some shit and a cape. I don't know. It's fucking hard to say because it was like old Christian fucking shit like that. Red means hot. Don't touch it. Stay away from it. Because they become tempting and alluring. And that's kind of what depression, fear is. It's, you see in the world stage of everyone being super depressed, and I think that's the darkness, man. I think that's part of it. I mean, that's a whole other thing too, the darkness. The darkness is just this idea that I've been playing with where we think light is enlightening, right? The word enlightening, for example. We think to light up the room is to bring peace and love and harmony, but what if the light is the wickedness? What if that's God's knowledge that was not meant for man, and so it curses his mind, and forever will he be drawn into madness? Because he'll never understand, he'll always get close. Like what we see in science, we think we know a little bit more. It's never going to be found. It's madness to try to understand the universe, or to try to understand what is going on in the human mind. What if that's the curse? What if we were meant to stay in the darkness, under the canopy, in the Garden of Eden, nice and safe? And now we're forever fucking doomed because our fucking curiosity and that fucking promise saying if you do this, I promise this can happen for you. You'll know. You'll see if you have this apple. It's all the same shit. My book follows that same guideline too, man. That little lie, that little sweet nothing it whispered in your ear, telling you, if you do this and defy the Creator, He's hiding this from you. That's the promise. That's what it is. And that's what the whisper is too, man. Essentially any book you make or art or whatever, the big bad guy is going to represent some sort of darkness of mankind, some sort of evil, some sort of, I don't know, some construct of society, the racist, some bullshit. It's always something dark, right? It's in our nature. We want the dark being to have the dark thoughts. You want it to be an irredeemable fucking evil that's sweeping through the land and doesn't understand, have remorse, and doesn't care. That's what we want to hear. Nothing against it, but the devil in the Bible, Sauron in Lord of the Rings, the Emperor. It's just evil for evil's sake. And what I've always wanted to do was to explore the idea of, what if evil doesn't exist? It was just something unlocked. That's what the whisper is. That's what the darkness is in my book. You're going to read it and it's going to be the story of Eris. It's going to be the Forgotten King, Cypherus, this and that. Quinlan at some point. Alistar, Lystra, wherever. But what drives all of them is fear. So why not that be the dark entity? Why not explore philosophically why fear drives us? You can make a really good case of why fear is good for this world. You could also make an equally good case of why it's not good, Duality, the balance. That's the kind of point of the book. You leave your bad guys so vague that it's inevitable. It's a beautiful concept to think about, light and dark, and good and bad, and all that, heaven and hell. But why do we need such stark differences, If not because of the stark differences within our own emotions, love and fear, how they're connected to these idealisms of this, what is going on in this world, that there's a good and there's a bad, that there's a dark being and a being of light, that light is illuminating and enlightening and it makes you see the fucking problems around you, and darkness is just void of that, ignorance and decay, and why do we need those beliefs? Even for people, and especially in this modern world where religion is falling off and it's being replaced by the religion of science, we still have those ideas of this and that, this black and white, this stark difference. And are you the good guy or the bad guy? Do you believe this or do you believe that? There's none of that gray that lies between, because gray doesn't exist. That there's no evidence that proves that it's either this or that, to some varying degree. You could find anything. You could say whatever the fuck you want in that spectrum, if you fucking want to, I guess. But I think the idea that the darkness is, I don't know how to say it better than this, but the darkness is dark and the light is light. I kind of wanted to go against that and say, maybe the darkness is something that should be idolized. Maybe lack of knowledge is what we really need. Maybe that's the real reason of why we're here. To not want to question why we're here. Why couldn't it be that? How's that question any, stupider than anything else you could imagine why we're here? But in itself, I'm also playing right back into it. Just doing that, I'm playing right back into what I'm trying to not. It's duality. It's the circle, man. Everything just goes back. The imprint of fucking, with the stains of life. That's the entire religion behind the whole book. Which I don't remember if I talked about it well enough in the episode of Time, but it plays into just the philosophy of life in this book and how everything works. The chains of time wrapped around the fucking the known universe moving, and they leave the imprint. And when you come back around, that imprint's still there from the chain, and the fucking idea of the circle and the strings of astral connecting, and God consciousness and manifestation, unmanifestation. I'll probably have to do a separate video of it because it's a little complex, honestly. Trying to explain how life is viewed in this book with all that shit, and just it's half scientific, half religious. It's my thoughts of what reality might be in real life, pretending to be a fantasy philosophy. But when you try to grasp something that you're never going to have an answer to, there's going to be something attached to that, and that's whatever you bring. So the idea with light and dark being these stark differences, these concepts of good and evil, it's a comforting fact, because it's just like we can identify what's bad, we can identify what's good. If you were to draw on one side love and draw on the other side fear, think of every emotion and see which one would fall on the other side. Where does sorrow land? Where does hate land? Where does, I don't know, compassion land? I'm sure it's subjective. I'm sure someone could say compassion could be in fear, but some would say love. But going back to it with the Creator, that's why he made all the emotions subjectively. So you could ask those questions and just look at life through that viewpoint of why is it this? Why is it that? Well, if I have a bunch of different people saying all this shit about this one subject, doesn't that make you understand it a little bit better? Especially going into this realm in real life where no one can question anything anymore. Now we're going back into that because it's scary. That's the kind of bullshit that I want to go through. I want to explore that. That's its own subject. That's separate. I think I went to the first episode, which was really bad, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But I put it up anyway, because fuck it. You can hear it. It's called growth. Every time I do this, hopefully I get better. But I think the more I talk, the more I get farther away from the subject at hand, and that's the whisper. I think the whisper is the ultimate, I guess to make quotes, ultimate bad guy. It's a cool concept to explore. To just cut through all the bullshit and not say his name is Elzendre and he is a demon lord from the third realm of the Tyrion Connect. Instead of doing all that fucking shit, why not be on the nose and say, no, it's just fear, man. They just call it the whisper. That's it. And it's not bad, by the way. It's just you that are. It brings into question, can you manipulate it? Who knows? But I wanted the concept of this episode to be about the philosophy of fear. And I'm not well versed in it. I'm not highly educated in this kind of shit. And I didn't want to search outwardly. I didn't want to go and do research on fear and talk about psychology of it and talk about the socio levels of it and this, all this bullshit. I wanted to keep this within. Only look through all my notes. Only read through anything that's ever came out of my mind. So I can keep it as pure as I can of what fear means to me. And that's exactly what fear means to me. It's a promise. It's a comfort. It's an enemy. It's a problem, but it's also a solution. It's something that I cannot fully define, but I could talk about it for hours. And I mean, I wish there was listeners. That'd be kind of dope. As I'm doing this, there's none, but I mean, you get used to that. But I'd love to be able to say, like, what is other, like, how do other people think about fear? What is it? See, I couldn't release this video and say, what is fear? Because then the people listen, like, what was he talking about, a book and all that stuff? Like, but that's kind of cool. Maybe I'll just do it. Fuck them. I don't know. I'll do it. I won't say, by the way, this is a fantasy thing. Like, no, I'll just say, what is fear? Name of the episode. What is it? I don't edit. I don't fucking clean it up. I don't put cute little songs underneath it and have a video on my face and then I pan over to here and it's all cool and shit to watch. No. It's unedited, unfiltered, just I'm going to talk. And that's what it is. That's what I'm going to do. Fuck you, listen. If you're willing to go as far as this, then that's pretty dope. That's pretty fucking dope. I invite that shit. Invite people into the book at that point. Like, all right, you want to help me out? Let's do this. Let's start writing this book, man. It's our book. It's the people's book kind of thing. You know, when I was beginning this book, when I was just like starting out, and I didn't realize it was going to be a book, you know, this and that, and I was just kind of like having fun with exploring this world I was just making up for whatever fucking reason I just started. I don't know why I did it. I meditated, and all of a sudden, this book just happened after I meditated. It was weird. I was in a band at the time. I had a lot of shit going on. I quit my job. We were playing on the road and shit, and the music was very serious, but all of a sudden this book made me say, I don't want to do the music anymore. I have to do the book. And I just fell away from everyone and everything because of this fucking book. This thing. I've lost so much because of it. I'm going crazy because of it probably too, but whatever. But I realized that there has to be this big, bad, evil fucking thing, right? You gotta have your first, oh, that must be the most evil of evil. And then you're like, okay, cool, Darth Vader, he's the, and then you're like, wait a minute, oh, there's an emperor behind that, oh, shit. You know, oh, the ring race, like, okay, that's the most evil, oh, there's something behind that, oh, shit, that's Sauron, yeah, you know what I mean? And you go farther back, and what's his name? The fucking, Sauron's the lieutenant of that thing. Malkor, I think? You know what I'm saying? So, it was like the fucking monarch at one point, and then, well, this dark evil thing, and I don't remember the first time I just said the whisper, and why. The first time I ever wrote about a whisper, I'm trying to find it right as I'm talking. The first time I was just like, what a whisper was. Okay. This is the first time I ever mentioned the whisper. It's a beautiful woman hired by the monarch to spread the lies to the people, using her power of persuasion to spread false hope to the people. That was the first time I fucking just was talking about the whisper. It was nothing. It was a little lore thing. But as time went on, and I was working at, okay, Empire, evil, blah, 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 Keepers, Jedi, you know, it was very Star Wars in the beginning. The more I started to find my own. That's why I think it's really good to write slow and just to hone your craft like that. Because you never know what you're going to make. And it'll always change, and then it'll just be someone else's story now. And that's not what you want. I think I want it to be sideways because it catches my voice better. But I'm fucking with the mic. I'm trying to see if talking above it is just as loud as talking, next to it. But anyway, I don't know if when I first mentioned the Whisper being this evil thing, it was Forgotten King that was the evil fucking thing. I just said one time there was a long forgotten king from a long forgotten land, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, I guess he's the bad guy, the Forgotten King. And that's why in the story, the Forgotten King is played out like, is that the bad guy? Is that an evil thing? Is that wrong? I mean, I don't know. It's because I don't either. He might be a good guy for all I know. He did some bad things, but does that define him as evil? He went against the wishes of his brethren and he created mankind and all that. Does that make him evil? Was he influenced by fear behind that? Why did he make woman? Because he didn't want to be alone. Why didn't he want to be alone? Was that the Whisper? Who knows? It's one of those things where I thought, fuck it, dude, leave it open. Leave concepts like that open. Because it'd be more interesting to hear what others have to say about it than anything I could ever write. And that's why I'm trying to put out as much wealth of information about this book, because I think I've said it before. I don't know if I said it on a podcast or not, but I don't expect any views of any of these videos until after I release the book. So the point is, if anyone wants to know things, there's a bunch of videos of the fucking person that wrote it talking about it. I feel like that's kind of cool for them. It's the online modern version of an appendix in the back. The world's moving fast now. People don't read. So I try to leave everything pretty damn well defined, but also very wide open. I try to stay on topic too, by the way, and it's really hard. It's like telling my brain to just think about one thing. Like, fuck. And all of a sudden I'm thinking about something totally different, 5 minutes. And then I forgot what I was doing. But, that's just normal. The Whisper, yes. I'd really like to hear how it's perceived. Just how people feel about that concept and of what people define fear as. What is the concept of darkness? And what does it mean to be enlightened? What is knowledge? Does that make intelligence just because you know more things? What is the basis of intelligence? And how is life driven forward away from the darkness because of it? Because let's be honest, fear is doubt. And if we're always trying to find reason for our lives and try to make them better and try to invent things and try to simplify the world and this and that, how is that not driven from fear then? I think that's the argument you can make where fear is a good thing, because fear has gotten us to this point right now. If you think about it, it's because of fear that we're sitting comfortably right now. So is fear the knowledge? Was that what was given, just like in the book? When it comes to the realm of creation, that fear was there and it attached onto man, or the Forgotten King and the Titans. And it gave them newfound knowledge because it was a promise of knowledge. Is that what fear is in the real world too? A promise. You could be safe if you learn this, if you open your mind to that, if you figure this out, which leads you to that, which now all of a sudden people are free enough to start creating religion because they're not consumed by looking for food 24/7 because they're more sedentary. The story of mankind. How did fear not make that all so? We like to think it's the idea of these aliens coming down and teaching mankind fucking to I don't even know, build pyramids and shit, whatever the concepts are that people have about the alien shit. What if it wasn't an alien of fucking physical form? What if it was a manifestation of a feeling? What if these feelings aren't natural in our world? What if those are the entities and we just define them as emotion? That's what my book's about. Because I want to explore that concept and see, like, does this fucking hold merit? Could this be the case? What exactly is it that's inside of us right now? Why did the person that hears this actually, find it? What was going on in their lives that they read the word fear and said, okay, is that the promise? Is that why it's so enticing to learn? Because it comes across as something so smooth and so easy. You know, if you were to role play and think, okay, what if me talking like this is what fear sounds like? What if it is? You know, we don't really know. But the idea that for this book is built behind that. And I was going to go into it and talk about the Dark Army. Honestly, that was the point of this episode, but maybe I will. I mean, maybe that'll be the next one, the Dark Army. That way we can get back into the fantasy and say, okay, what are the orcs and, you know, Orcai and all that shit, stormtroopers, you know, big bad guys. I think I can do that next time, because I mean, I'm still working on that shit. I'm still giving everything proper names and stuff, and defining and filing down the edges. But I just wanted to ask that question and leave it out there of what is fear. And I wanted to just kind of explain how I use it in the book and what kind of tool it is. And this book's trying to be a fantasy book pretending to be a philosophy, pretending to be a historical novel, pretending to be a fucking, like, epic. It's all these things. That's the goal of it. I'm opening up the door of philosophy, just like Star Wars did for me. And it sounds corny to say, but everything I ever knew about philosophy came from Star Wars. I think that's the point of storytelling, and that's what I'm trying to do here. But I'm going to end this one because we're at almost an hour. Unbelievably. I usually try to keep it around an hour, just because I think that's a perfect amount of time. That's how long I like to listen to things. Or I listen to the whole thing. Fuck it. I'm not one of those people that's like 5 minutes. No, if I'm interested, I'm going to go all in. But I'm going to end this one. And we're going to move on to the next one. I've done 2 today. That's pretty cool. Maybe I can do 2 tomorrow. But yeah, I'll leave it at that question, is what is fear? And just see what people could come up with. Anyway, I'm going to head out then. Until next time.